Mom, I'm pregnant.
I said.
Who? Who is the father?
She said nothing. The silence lasted longer than my heartbeat. I asked again.
Who is the father? Who is the father?
Still nothing. Just breathing on the other end of the line. Shallow, scared, but not scared enough to answer me. I could hear traffic in the background. Cars passing. A horn honking somewhere far away. She must have been outside when she called me. Standing on some street corner, working up the courage to say those words. "Grace," I said. My voice was shaking.
Grace, baby, who is the father?
She started crying. Not the kind of crying where you can still talk. The kind where your whole body shakes and you can't catch your breath. And still, she didn't answer. My hands started shaking. I don't mean like a little tremor, the kind of shaking that makes you think you're having a stroke. The phone almost slipped out of my grip. I had to press it against my ear with my shoulder just to keep it there. My heart was pounding so hard. I could hear it in my head. That thick, hollow thud that drowns out everything else. The room started spinning. I reached out for something to hold on to and grabbed the edge of my dresser. The wood felt rough under my fingers, real, solid. Everything else felt like it was dissolving. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat had closed up. All I could do was sit there on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall, listening to my daughter breathe on the other end of the phone while my whole world caved in around me. She was crying now. I could hear it. Soft little sobs, like she used to make when she was small and scraped her knee. But this wasn't a scraped knee. This was something I couldn't fix with a Band-Aid and a kiss. This was something that would change her life forever. That would change all of our lives forever. I looked down at my hands. These old, wrinkled hands that had worked so hard for so many years. Hands that had changed her diapers and braided her hair and held her when she was scared. Hands that were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone.
Grace, baby, please. Talk to me.
But she just kept crying. I felt something break inside me that day. Not break like glass, break like old wood, slowly, with a deep crack that you feel in your bones. It was fear, it was anger, it was a shame, it was guilt, but most of all, it was love. That's the part that hurt the most, because I still loved her. God help me. I still loved her so much it made my chest ache. And I hated that I couldn't protect her from herself. I hated that I had failed. I hated that somewhere along the way, I lost her. That the little girl who used to hold my hand and tell me all her secrets had become this stranger who couldn't even tell me who had gotten her pregnant. I hated myself for not being enough. For not being the kind of mother who could have prevented this. For not being strong enough, smart enough, or present enough. And I hated that somewhere along the way. I lost her. And now here we were. I am an old woman with nothing but questions, and her, a young woman with nothing but silence. I thought about all the other mothers I knew, the ones whose daughters graduated with honors, the ones whose daughters got married to nice young men with good jobs, the ones whose daughters called them every Sunday just to chat. I thought about Sister Patricia at church, whose daughter just got into medical school. I thought about my neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, whose daughter just had her second baby with her husband of 5 years. And then I thought about me, sitting on my bed, holding a phone, listening to my pregnant daughter cry because she didn't know who the father was. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. But to understand why her silence hurt me so deeply, you need to know who my daughter was and what we survived. Because this didn't happen overnight. This was years in the making. And maybe, if I'm being honest, it started long before she ever made her first mistake. Maybe it started with me. Maybe it started with the choices I made, the man I married, the life I built, the example I set. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe some people are just born to struggle, And no amount of love or discipline or prayer can change that. I don't know. I've spent so many nights lying awake, trying to figure out where I went wrong, trying to pinpoint the exact moment when I lost her. But there was no single moment. There were 1,000 small moments, 1,000 little cracks that spread until everything shattered. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. My daughter's name is Grace. I named her that because I thought it was beautiful, elegant, something she could carry with pride. I didn't know then how much grace I would need just to survive raising her. When she was born, I thought my life was perfect. I had a husband, a little house, a baby girl who looked at me like I hung the moon. I remember the day I brought her home from the hospital. It was spring. The dogwoods were blooming. Everything smelled fresh and new. I carried her into the house, this tiny bundle wrapped in a pink blanket, and I thought, this is it. This is what happiness feels like. I thought we were going to grow old together, the three of us. I thought we'd have family dinners and graduations and weddings and grandchildren. I thought a lot of things. I thought my husband loved me. I thought he wanted this family as much as I did. I thought the way he looked at me on our wedding day was real. I thought wrong. But life has a way of taking your plans and setting them on fire, and then making you watch while they burn. Grace was 8 years old when her father left. 8. Old enough to understand. Old enough to remember. Old enough to be destroyed by it. He didn't leave because of another woman, though I'm sure there were plenty. He left because he was tired of shielding the responsibility, which felt like a noose around his neck. Because he wanted to be young and free and unburdened. So he walked out. It was a Tuesday morning. I remember that clearly. I was making breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast. Grace was at the table doing her homework. She had a spelling test that day. He came downstairs with a suitcase, just one suitcase. Our entire life together could fit in one bag. I'm leaving, he said. Not, we need to talk. Not, I'm sorry. Just, I'm leaving. Grace looked up from her homework. She had this confused expression on her face, like she didn't understand what was happening. Where are you going, Daddy? She asked. He didn't even look at her. Somewhere else, he said, and then he walked out the door. No goodbye to Grace, no explanation. Just gone. I stood there in the kitchen, holding a spatula, watching the man I'd loved for 12 years walk away like we meant nothing. Grace didn't move. She just stared at the door, waiting for him to come back and say it was a joke. But he never came back. She cried for weeks. She'd sit by the window after school, waiting for his car to pull up, waiting for him to come back and say it was all a mistake. Every afternoon, the same routine. She'd drop her backpack by the door, run to the window, and watch the street. Sometimes for hours. In the blink of an eye, or so it seemed, 15 years had passed. I'd call her cell phone, and it would ring and go to voicemail. Hi, this is Grace. Leave a message. Her voice always sounded so young on that recording, like the girl she used to be. I'd leave messages. Hi, baby. Just checking in. Call me back when you can. I love you. She never called back. She stopped responding to my texts. I'd send her messages throughout the day. Good morning, sweetheart. Have a great day. Thinking about you. Did you eat? Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Red receipts would show me she'd seen them. But she never responded. When I did manage to get her on the phone, she was always in a hurry. I'm busy, Mama. I have class, Mama. I'll call you back, Mama. But she never did. I felt like I was chasing a ghost. I was holding on to something that didn't exist anymore. The daughter I knew was gone. And this distant, cold version didn't seem to need me at all. I started hearing things. From people whose kids went to the same college. From people who knew Grace. The rumors trickled back to me like poison. They said Grace was always at parties. They said she was drinking. They said she was sleeping around. Sister Monica from the church pulled me aside one Sunday. "I hate to be the bearer of bad news," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "But my nephew goes to that college. He said he saw Grace at a party last weekend. She was, well, she was quite drunk. Mrs. Peterson from the grocery store where I worked mentioned it too. My daughter's roommate knows your daughter Grace," she said, while she was ringing up her groceries. "Said she's quite popular with the boys, if you know what I mean." The way she said it. That knowing look. That judgment. I wanted to defend Grace. To tell them they were wrong. That they didn't know her well enough. But I couldn't. Because deep down, I knew it was true. I didn't want to believe it. But deep down, I knew it was true. Because that's who Grace had become. Someone who didn't care about consequences. Someone who didn't care about herself. Someone I didn't know how to reach anymore. When Grace did come home, it was always a disaster. She'd show up unannounced, usually needing something: money, clean clothes, a place to crash. She'd sleep all day. She'd go out all night. She'd barely speak to me. I'd try to make her favorite meals, try to create opportunities for us to talk. But she'd eat in her room or skip the meal entirely. And when she did, it was always with that same tone, that dismissive, condescending tone that made me feel like I was nothing. I tried to talk to her about school. "How are your classes going?" "Fine." "What are you studying?" "Stuff." "Are you making friends?" "Sure." It was like pulling teeth. I tried to talk to her about her plans. "What do you want to do after you graduate?" "I don't know." "Have you thought about it?" "Not really." "Maybe we could look at some career options together." I said, "I don't know, Mama." I tried to talk to her about her life. "Are you seeing anyone?" She'd laugh. A bitter sound. "Like a boyfriend?" "Yes." "Not really." "What does that mean?" "It means it's none of your business." So I stopped trying. What was the point? Every question was met with hostility. Every attempt to connect was shut down. We were strangers living under the same roof for a weekend, dancing around each other while staying carefully apart. And then she'd leave again. And I'd be alone. One weekend, Grace came home wearing clothes I'd never seen before. Tight dresses, high heels, makeup caked on so thick she looked like someone else. The dress was red, sequined, cut so low I could see everything God gave her. Her face was painted like a mask. Dark eyes, red lips, contouring that made her look harder. I almost didn't recognize her. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Out." "Out where?" "To a club." My blood went cold. "A club? Grace, you're barely 20 years old." She rolled her eyes, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. "I have a fake ID." My stomach dropped. "You can't be serious." "Why not?" "Everyone does it." She said it so casually. Breaking the law was nothing. Like putting herself in danger was nothing. "That doesn't make it right." She laughed. A bitter, hollow laugh that made my skin crawl. "You wouldn't know what's right if it hit you in the face." I felt like she'd slapped me. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you spent your whole life being a doormat, letting Daddy walk all over you, letting your bosses walk all over you, letting everyone walk all over you. And now you want to tell me how to live. I did everything for you." "You did everything wrong," she shouted. "You let Daddy leave. You didn't fight for our family. You just accepted it and moved on like we didn't matter." Tears were streaming down my face now. "That's not fair. Life's not fair, Mama. You taught me that." And then she left. I heard the door slam, heard a car horn outside, heard her heels clicking down the walkway. I sat on the couch and cried until my eyes were swollen shut. The worst part wasn't the clubs. It was the men. Grace brought them home sometimes. Different men. Every time. They'd sit on my couch, looking uncomfortable, while Grace got ready in her room. Some of them were polite. They'd shake my hand, call me Mom, and make small talk about the weather. Others wouldn't even look at me. They'd stare at their phones, scrolling, waiting for Grace to finish getting ready. I'd try to make small talk. What do you do? I work at a warehouse. How did you meet Grace? At a party. How long have you been seeing each other? A shrug. A couple of weeks. But they never stayed long enough for real answers. They were just passing through. And so was Grace. One time, a man who looked old enough to be her father showed up. He had grey in his beard, wrinkles around his eyes. He was wearing an expensive watch and driving a Mercedes. When Grace came out, dressed up, I pulled her aside. How old is he? I whispered. I don't know. Does it matter? Yes, it matters. He looks 40. He's 36. Grace, you're 20 years old. So? So that's wrong. Why? Because you said so? Because he's old enough to be your father. She looked at me with cold eyes. Well, my father's not here, is he? So maybe I'm looking for him in other places. And she left with him. Left me standing there, gutted, wondering how we'd gotten here. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. Grace had come home after being gone for 3 weeks. No calls, no texts, nothing. I'd been worried sick. I'd called the school. They said she was enrolled, but rarely showed up to class. She walked in like nothing was wrong, went straight to her room, and started packing a bag. This was a hotel. Like I was just someone who provided free laundry service. We need to talk, I said. I was standing in her doorway, arms crossed, heart pounding. Not now, Mama. Yes, now. She sighed and dropped her bag. What are you doing with your life? I'm living it. This isn't living, Grace. This is destroying yourself. She laughed. That bitter laugh I'd come to hate. You don't know anything about my life. I know enough. I know you're throwing everything away. Your education, your future, your self-respect. Her face hardened. My self-respect. That's rich coming from you. What's that supposed to mean? You're the one who let Daddy walk all over you. You're the one who stayed in this dead-end town, working. Dead-end jobs, living a dead-end life. You think I want to end up like you? It felt like she'd punched me in the chest. All the air left my lungs. The room started spinning. Get out, I whispered. What? Get out of my house. She stared at me for a long moment. I could see the shock in her eyes. I'd never kicked her out before. Never told her to leave. But I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't sit there and watch her destroy herself while she destroyed me too. Fine, she said. Then she grabbed her bag and left. I didn't see her for 2 months after that. Those 2 months were the hardest of my life. I didn't know where Grace was. I didn't know if she was safe. I didn't know if she was alive. I called her every day. No answer. I texted her every day. No response. I drove to her college and asked around. No one had seen her. Or at least, no one would tell me if they had. I went to the registrar's office. They said she'd withdrawn from her classes. Withdrawn. My heart sank. When? I asked. 2 weeks ago. Did she say why? No, ma'am. Students don't have to provide a reason. I felt like I was drowning. Like I was being pulled under by a current I couldn't fight. I filed a missing persons report with the police. They said she was an adult and had the right to go where she wanted. But I'm her mother, I said. I just need to know she's okay. We understand, Mum. But unless there's evidence of foul play, there's nothing we can do. I felt like I was drowning. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I stopped going to church because I couldn't face the questions, the pity, the judgment. Everyone wanted to know where Grace was. How are you doing? And I had no answers. I spent those 2 months in a fog, going through the motions, working, coming home, staring at the walls, waiting for the phone to ring, waiting for a knock on the door, waiting for the police to show up and tell me they'd found her body. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. I was at work, stocking shelves. when I felt it vibrate in my pocket. I almost didn't answer. I'd been ignoring unknown numbers for weeks. Too many telemarketers, too many scams. But something told me to answer. It was Grace. My heart leapt into my throat. Grace? Baby, where are you? Are you okay? There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, ragged, uneven. And then she said it. Mama, I'm pregnant. Everything stopped. The world, my breath, my heart. The shelves around me seemed to tilt. The fluorescent lights buzzed too loudly. You're... What? I'm pregnant. I tried to process it, tried to wrap my mind around it. My baby, my little girl, pregnant. The little girl who used to play with dolls, who used to braid my hair, who used to tell me she was going to be a doctor when she grew up. That little girl was pregnant. Who is the father? I asked. Silence. Grace. Who is the father? More silence. I could hear her crying now. Soft sobs that broke my heart. Grace, answer me. I don't know. Those 4 words hit me like a freight train. You don't know? She started crying harder. I don't know, Mama. I don't know. I couldn't breathe. My hand gripped the shelf so hard my knuckles turned white. A box of cereal fell to the floor. Someone was asking if I was okay. I couldn't respond. I stood up, sat down on the floor, stood up again. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. What do you mean you don't know? She was sobbing now, full, body-racking sobs. I didn't... I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. I wanted to reach through the phone and shake her and ask her how she could be so stupid, so reckless, so careless. How could she not know who the father was? How many men had there been? What had she done to herself? But all I could do was cry. I stood there in the middle of the grocery store, surrounded by boxes and cans and strangers, and I cried. My supervisor came. Over. Mrs. Davis? Are you all right? I shook my head. I need to go. Family emergency. I don't remember leaving. I don't remember getting to my car. I don't remember the drive. All I remember is the sound of Grace crying on the other end of the phone, and the silence when I asked who the father was. Where are you? I asked. My voice was shaking. My whole body was shaking. At school. Stay there. I'm coming to get you. Mama, you don't have to. Stay there. I hung up. I got in my car and drove. I don't even remember the drive. I was on autopilot, numb, shaking. My mind was racing, questions spinning in circles. How far along was she? Had she seen a doctor? Was she keeping it? Who were the possible fathers? How could she not know? When I got to her dorm, she was waiting outside. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her hair was a mess. She looked so small, so scared, so young. She was wearing sweatpants and an oversized hoodie, no makeup, no armor. For a moment, I saw the little girl she used to be, the one who needed me, the one I'd failed. She got in the car without saying anything. We didn't talk during the ride home. Grace sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, crying quietly. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to say something. But I didn't know what. What do you say to your daughter when she tells you she's pregnant and doesn't know who the father is? What do you say when everything you feared has come true? What do you say when your worst nightmare is sitting right next to you, crying softly, waiting for you to say something that will make it all okay? But nothing would make this okay. Nothing. When we got home, I finally spoke. We were sitting in the living room. Grace was on the couch, hugging a pillow like it was a life raft. I was in the chair across from her, the same chair I'd sat in 1,000 times before. The same chair where I'd read her bedtime stories, the same chair where I'd helped her with homework, the same chair where I'd told her everything would be okay. but everything wasn't okay. You've spoiled your future, I said. The words came out harder than I meant them to. Colder. She looked up at me with those red, swollen eyes. I know, she whispered. Do you? Do you really know what you've done? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. You've thrown everything away. Everything I worked for. Everything I sacrificed. All for what? For men who don't even care about you? For nights you can't even remember? I know, Mama. Do you know how hard I worked to give you a better life than I had? Do you know how many nights I went without sleep, without food, just to make sure you had what you needed? I know. Do you know how many times I prayed for you? How many times have I begged God to protect you, to guide you, to bring you back to me? I know, Mama. I know. Then why would you do this? Why would you throw it all away? She didn't answer. She just cried. And I just sat there, watching her fall apart, feeling like I was falling apart too. I don't know who you are anymore, I said quietly. The Grace I raised wouldn't have done this. The Grace I raised had dreams, had goals, had self-respect. Maybe I'm not that Grace anymore, she whispered. Then who are you? She looked up at me, and for a moment I saw something in her eyes, something raw and broken and honest. I don't know, she said. I don't know who I am. And somehow, that hurt more than anything else she could have said. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I kept replaying the conversation in my head. The look on her face when I said she'd spoiled her future. The way her shoulders shook when she cried. The silence that hung between us was like a wall, and I wondered if I'd said the right thing, or if I'd just made everything worse. Maybe she needed compassion, not condemnation. Maybe she needed me to hold her and tell her it would be okay. Maybe I should have asked if she was okay instead of telling her everything she'd done wrong. But I was so angry, so hurt, so disappointed. I felt like I'd given her everything and she'd thrown it in my face. Like I'd sacrificed my whole life for nothing. And now here we were, right back where I started. A single mother, struggling, alone. Except this time, I was older, tired, and I had a daughter who was about to become a mother herself. I couldn't stop thinking about it. If I'd been softer, would she have listened? If I'd been stricter, would she have rebelled less? If I'd been more present, would she have felt more loved? If I'd stayed married to her father, even though he didn't love me, would she have turned out differently? If I'd made more money, would she have had better opportunities? If I'd been a better mother, would she have made better choices? If I'd done things differently, would we be in this mess? I didn't know. I still don't know. Parenting doesn't come with a manual. You just do the best you can and hope it's enough. But sometimes your best isn't enough, and you have to live with that. You have to live with the fact that you gave everything you had, and it still wasn't enough to save them. Grace stayed with me for a few weeks after that. She was quiet, withdrawn. She spent most of her time in her room, sleeping, crying, or staring at the wall. I'd hear her through the door sometimes, crying softly, talking to herself. Praying, maybe. I tried to talk to her, but she didn't want to talk. I tried to help her, but she didn't want help. She was drowning, and I didn't know how to save her. One morning, I brought her breakfast in bed. Scrambled eggs and toast. Orange juice. She was sitting up, staring out the window. "You need to eat," I said. She didn't respond. I set the tray on her nightstand. "Grace, you're eating for two now. You need to take care of yourself. I don't deserve to be taken care of." The words were so quiet, I almost didn't hear them. "Don't say that." "It's true. I ruined everything. You were right." I sat down on the edge of her bed. "Grace, I'm a mess, Mama. I don't know who the father is. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything." She started crying again, and for the first time in years, I held her. I pulled her into my arms and held her like I did when she was little, when she scraped her knee or had a bad dream. And she cried into my shoulder while I stroked her hair and told her it would be okay, even though I didn't know if it would be. Eventually, we had to talk about what she was going to do: keep the baby, adoption, abortion, all terrible options, all life-changing options. I sat with her at the kitchen table one morning and asked her what she wanted. She stared into her coffee cup for a long time. The steam rose between us. The kitchen was quiet, except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. "I don't know," she finally said. "You have to decide." "Grace, I know. What do you want to do?" She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "I want to go back in time and not be so stupid." My heart broke all over again. "We can't do that, baby. We can only move forward." "I don't know how." "We'll figure it out. Together." She looked down at her coffee again. "I don't know if I can do this." "Do what?" "Be a mother. I can barely take care of myself." "You'll learn. We'll both learn." "What if I'm like him? What if I abandon my baby as Daddy abandoned me?" The fear in her voice was so real, so raw, that it took my breath away. "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because you're here. Because you called me. Because you're scared. And that means you care." She thought about that for a moment. "I think I want to keep it," she whispered. Grace decided to keep the baby. I don't know if it was the right choice, but it was her choice, and I had to support her. Even though I was terrified, even though I didn't know how we were going to manage, even though I was angry and hurt and scared, she was still my daughter, and this was still my grandchild. My grandchild. The thought felt surreal. I was going to be a grandmother. At 65, I was going to start all over again. Diapers, bottles, sleepless nights. I thought I was done with all that. But here we were. We started preparing for the baby. I took her to the doctor's appointments. I sat in the waiting room, filling out paperwork, while Grace got her first ultrasound. When they called me back, I held her hand while the technician ran the wand over her belly, and then we heard it. The heartbeat. Fast and strong and real. Grace started crying. So did I. Because despite everything, despite all the pain and the fear and the uncertainty, this was a life. A new life. A chance to start over. I helped her apply for assistance programs. We spent hours on the phone, navigating automated systems, filling out forms and providing documentation. Grace qualified for Medicaid, for food stamps. It was humiliating for her. I could see it in her face every time we had to prove how little she had. But we needed the help. I started buying baby clothes, diapers, and formula. Little pink onesies, tiny socks, a second-hand crib from the thrift store. I'd come home from work with bags full of things, and Grace would help me sort through them. For the first time in years, we were doing something together. It felt surreal, like I was living in a bad dream. But it was real. My 20-year-old daughter was going to be a mother, and I was going to be a grandmother. Whether I was ready or not, I was terrified, not just about the practical stuff, the money, the space, the logistics of raising a baby, but about Grace. She was barely taking care of herself. How was she going to take care of a baby? She'd never been responsible for anything in her life. She'd never followed through on anything. She'd never put anyone else before herself. And now she was going to have a tiny human who depended on her for everything. I didn't know if she could do it. I didn't know if I could do it. I was 65 years old. I was tired. My back hurts. My knees ached. I worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. How was I supposed to help raise a baby? But we didn't have a choice. This baby was coming whether we were ready or not. Slowly, something started to shift in Grace. As her belly grew, something softened in her. She started staying home more. She started eating better, making herself real meals instead of just snacking on junk food. She started going to her doctor's appointments without me having to drag her. She even started talking to me again. Not a lot, but more than before. Little things. The baby kicked today. I think it's a girl. Do you think I'll be a good mom? That last question broke my heart. Because I didn't know the answer. I wanted to say yes, tell her she'd be amazing and that she had nothing to worry about. But I'd be lying. The truth was, I didn't know. But I said, I think you'll try your best. And she nodded. Like that was enough. Maybe it was. For a little while I had hope. Hope that this baby would be the thing that saved Grace, that it would give her purpose, that it would make her grow up, that it would fix everything that was broken between us. I know that's a lot to put on a baby, a tiny, innocent baby who didn't ask to be born into this mess. But hope is a powerful thing, even when it's foolish. I started imagining the future. Grace is holding her baby, smiling, happy. Maybe she'd go back to school, get a good job, and find a nice man who would love her and the baby. Just maybe I kept thinking. Grace gave birth on a cold February morning. It had snowed the night before. Everything was white and quiet. Her contractions started around midnight. She woke me up, scared, saying it was time. We drove to the hospital through empty streets. The windshield, wipers, scraped against the ice. I was in the delivery room with her. She squeezed my hand so hard, I thought she'd break my fingers. She screamed and cried and cursed and begged for it to be over. I can't do this, she kept saying. I can't. I can't. Yes, you can, I said. You're almost there, baby. Just a little more. And then, finally, the baby came. A little girl. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. 10 tiny fingers. 10 tiny toes. A head full of dark hair. The nurse put her in Grace's arms, and for a moment, everything else fell away. Grace looked down at her daughter with wonder in her eyes. Pure, unfiltered wonder. And she cried. Not out of pain, out of love. I'd never seen her look at anything that way before. With such pure, overwhelming love, Grace named her Hope. I thought it was fitting. Hope. The thing we'd been holding on to this whole time. The thing that kept us going even when everything felt impossible. Hope, Grace whispered, running her finger along the baby's tiny cheek. Her name is Hope. It's beautiful, I said. She's beautiful. She is. Grace looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm going to do better, Mama. I'm going to be better. For her. I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe her. The first few weeks were hard. Harder than I remembered. Maybe because I was older. Maybe because I was exhausted. Maybe because I was trying to work and help raise a baby at the same time. Hope cried. She had colic, the doctor said. It would pass. But in the meantime, she screamed for hours. Nothing we did helped. Grace was exhausted. I was exhausted. We took turns getting up in the middle of the night. We took turns changing diapers and making bottles and rocking her back to sleep. It was chaos. The house smelled like spit-up and dirty diapers. There was laundry everywhere, dishes piled in the sink. We were both running on 3 hours of sleep and pure adrenaline. But it was also beautiful, because for the first time in years, Grace and I were working together. We were a team. We were a family. But reality set in quickly. Grace was overwhelmed. She'd cry along with Hope sometimes, both of them wailing in the middle of the night. I'd find her in the nursery at 3 a.m, holding Hope, both of them crying. I don't know what she wants, Grace would sob. I've fed her, changed her, rocked her. Nothing works. She's a baby, I'd say gently. Sometimes babies just cry, but I should be able to fix it. I'm her mother. You're doing everything you can. But I could see it in her eyes. The doubt, the fear, the overwhelming sense that she wasn't enough. She didn't know what she was doing. Neither did I, really. It had been so long since I'd had a baby. 20 years. So much had changed. We figured it out together, trial and error. Lots of errors. Sometimes I'd catch Grace staring out the window with this empty look in her eyes. She'd be holding Hope, feeding her a bottle, but her mind would be somewhere else. She was somewhere else. She was mourning the life she could have had, the life she'd lost. I understood. At 20 years old, she should have been at parties with friends, dating, discovering herself, making mistakes that didn't come with lifetime consequences. Instead, she was home with a baby, covered in spit-up, exhausted, trapped. But it also made me angry, because she'd made her choices, and now she had to live with them. We both did. One time, she said it out loud. We were sitting in the living room. Hope was finally asleep. The house was quiet. "I wonder what my life would be like if I hadn't gotten pregnant," she said softly. I looked at her. "You can't think like that." "Why not?" "Because it doesn't help. You can't change the past. You can only move forward." "But what if I made a mistake? What if I should have—" "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't finish that sentence." She looked down at Hope, sleeping peacefully in her arms. "I love her," she said. "I do, but sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating." And I didn't know what to say to that. Because I understood. God help me, I understood. I still think about that phone call. "Who is the father?" Silence. I never pushed her to find out. I never made her take a paternity test or track down the possibilities. Maybe I should have. Maybe that child deserved to know her father. Maybe there was a man out there who didn't even know he had a daughter. Maybe I failed her again by not forcing her to face that reality. But I was tired, and she was broken. And sometimes you just have to let things be. Because some answers won't fix anything. Some truths will only cause more pain. It's been 8 months now since Hope was born. Grace is trying. She really is. She gets up with Hope every night. Sometimes 3, 4, 5 times. She feeds her and changes her and plays with her. She's even talking about going back to school. Online classes so she can stay home with the baby. I don't know if she'll follow through, but I hope she does. She enrolled last week, 1 class, Introduction to Psychology. It's a start. Grace and I are better now. Not perfect. We'll never be perfect. There's too much hurt between us. Too many things we can't take back. Too many words that can't be unsaid. But we're trying. We talk more. We laugh sometimes. Real laughs, not forced ones. We sit together in the evenings, watching Hope play on her blanket. And for a moment, it almost feels normal. Almost. Last night, Grace made dinner. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and garlic bread. But she made it without me asking. She set the table. She called me when it was ready. And we sat together and ate and talked about Hope's new sounds and whether she'd have Grace's eyes or someone else's. We didn't talk about the father. We never do. It's an unspoken agreement. A wound we've decided not to pick at. The day will come when we can't avoid it anymore. When Hope wants answers. When she needs to know where she comes from. But for now, we let it be. I think about the past a lot. All the things I did wrong. All the things I wish I could change. I wonder if I was too strict. If I pushed her away instead of pulling her close. When she started lying, should I have been more understanding instead of more controlling? When she started rebelling, should I have given her more freedom instead of tightening the leash? I wonder if I was too soft. If I let her get away with too much for too long. Should I have been stricter when she was younger? Should I have set firmer boundaries? Should I have dragged her to church instead of letting her stop going? I wonder if it even matters. Because that is the past. And all we have is now. I can't go back and redo the moments I got wrong. I can't rewind time and choose different words, different reactions, different consequences. All I can do is be here now, for Grace, for Hope, for whatever comes next. Here's the thing they don't tell you about being a parent. You can do everything right and still lose. You can love with everything you have and still not be enough. You can sacrifice and pray and fight and beg, and your child can still make choices that destroy them. And you have to watch. You have to stand there and watch them fall and know there's nothing you can do to catch them. It's the cruelest kind of love, the kind that doesn't come with guarantees, the kind that breaks you and rebuilds you and breaks you again. But it's still love, and it doesn't go away, not when they lie to you, not when they hurt you, not when they disappoint you, not even when they look you in the eye and say they don't know who the father of their child is. It's still love, and it's still worth it, even when it feels like it's killing you. I look at Hope sometimes, this perfect little innocent thing, and I feel such overwhelming love that it almost hurts. And then I look at Grace, holding her daughter, and I feel the same thing. Despite everything, despite all the pain and the mistakes and the heartbreak, I love her. I will always love her. I'm 67 years old now. I've lived long enough to know a few things. I know that life doesn't turn out the way you plan. I planned to grow old with a husband. I planned to watch my daughter graduate from college. I planned to meet her husband at a nice wedding. I planned to become a grandmother in my 70s, when I had time to spoil the grandkids and send them home. None of that happened. But here I am anyway. I know that people are complicated and messy and broken. We're all making do with what's in front of us, even when we fall short anyway. I know that forgiveness is hard, but bitterness is harder. I could spend the rest of my life angry at Grace for the choices she made, angry at her father for abandoning us, angry at Jar for not answering my prayers the way I wanted. But bitterness would eat me alive. So I choose forgiveness every day, even when it's hard. I know that you can't control anyone but yourself, not your husband, not your daughter, not even your own heart sometimes. All you can control is how you respond. How do you show up? How do you love? I know that Grace, the kind you give, not the kind you name your daughter, is the only thing that gets you through. Grace for others, grace for yourself, grace for the life you didn't get to live, grace for the life you have. I don't know what the future holds for Grace. I don't know if she'll finish school. She's taking one class now. But will she take two next semester? Will she stick with it when it gets hard? I don't know if she'll find a good man who will love her genuinely. I don't know if she even wants that. We've never talked about it. I don't know if she'll be okay, but I hope she will be. I hope she'll look back on these years and see them as the place where she learned to be strong. I hope she'll look at Hope and see not a mistake, but a miracle. I hope she'll forgive herself for all the choices she made, for all the pain she caused, for all the potential she wasted, and maybe, someday, she'll forgive me too, for not being enough, for not saving her, for not knowing how to help. Maybe we'll both learn to forgive ourselves and move forward together. Hope is sleeping in her crib right now. I can hear her little breathing through the baby monitor. Those soft little sounds that remind you that something precious is in the next room. She doesn't know any of this story yet. She doesn't know that her mother doesn't know who her father is. She doesn't know about the mistakes and the heartbreak and the years of pain. She doesn't know about the screaming matches, or the nights Grace didn't come home, or the phone call that changed everything. All she knows is that she's loved by her mother, by me, by this small, broken family that somehow keeps going. And maybe that's enough. Maybe love is always enough, even when it feels like it isn't. I never thought I'd be posting this. I never thought I'd be the kind of person with a story like this. I thought I'd be the mother everyone admired, the one with the perfect daughter who made all the right choices. But here I am, an old woman, raising a granddaughter, trying to help her broken daughter become whole. It's not the life I wanted. It's not the life I dreamed of when I was young and full of hope. but it's the life I have, and I'm doing the best I can. That's all any of us can do. Wake up every morning and try again. Love even when it hurts. Forgive even when it's hard. Keep going even when you want to give up. That's all we can do. Some nights, when the house is quiet and hope is asleep and Grace is in her room, I sit on the porch and look up at the stars. I think about all the prayers I've prayed over the years. For Grace to come home safe. For Grace to make better choices. For Grace to be happy. For Grace to know she's loved. I don't know if God hears those prayers. I don't know if he's been listening all these years while I've been begging him to save my daughter. I don't know if anything I've done has made a difference, but I keep praying anyway. Because that's what mothers do. We keep loving. We keep hoping. We keep fighting for our children, even when they've given up on themselves, even when they break our hearts, even when they disappoint us, even when they don't know who the Father is. We keep going, because that silence on the other end of the phone, that terrible, crushing silence, it's not the end of the story. It's just another chapter. And maybe, if we're lucky, if we're strong, if we hold on tight enough, we'll get to see how it ends. Together, still standing, still broken, but still here, still loving, always loving. That's the only thing I know for sure. The love doesn't stop. It never stops. Even when everything else falls apart, the love remains. And maybe that has to be enough. I look down at my hands. These old, tired hands that have worked so hard for so long. These hands that raised Grace, they are now helping to raise hope. These hands that have held so much pain and so much love. And I think about all the hands that will come after mine. Grace's hands, holding hope. Hope's hands, someday holding her own children. A chain of mothers and daughters, each one broken in their own way, each one trying to do better than the one before. It's not perfect. It's messy and complicated and full of mistakes. But it's ours. This imperfect, beautiful, heartbreaking family. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Even the pain, even the heartbreak, even the silence on the other end of the phone when I asked who the Father was. Because all of it, every terrible, beautiful moment, led us here, to this porch, under these stars, still together, still trying, still loving. And that, I think, is enough.
If this story resonated with you, share it. Drop a comment. Tell me what choice you would have made. Be honest. If you were in my shoes, how would you have handled this? Because what happened next, no one saw coming. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next story.